pattern. So let's first start off by tracing the pattern as is. Tracing all around, marking all of your notches and your punch holes. And again, this part of it, you do not have any seam allowances and you don't want to add the seam allowances yet. So let's do our marking there. Oh my gosh, I didn't even, yeah. Center right here. And do all of your lines. I have my bust line here. And then I'm going to attach my legs for my dart. And I'm going to be clearly marking the new dart location. And for me, it's going to be this armhole here. It's already notched, but if you wanted to place it anywhere else, you just have to mark it and draw your line connecting to the apex. So everything kind of connects here, and that becomes like your anchor point. We're gonna then cut it out. Okay. And this becomes your working pattern. You're gonna slash one leg of the dart that you want to get rid of. So for me, I'm gonna slash just, I don't know, I'll do this one. Slash the leg that you're gonna close up right up until you get really close to the point. You don't have to cut all the way through because you still want this to be the anchor. You're gonna then cut your new dart leg until you get really close to the apex, not quite cutting through. If you happen to cut through, that's fine. You just have to make sure you line it up correctly. Okay. So then now we're gonna lay it down. Oh, I need tape. Hold on. And what you're gonna do is literally just boop, pivot, not pivot actually, close this dart. And it's gonna open up this new location for you. So from then, and by closing, you're gonna line up both dart legs together, like that. So because I didn't cut all the way through, this kind of acts as an anchor for me to move around. And then we'll just tape that down. Tape everything down. You can either tape it down, trace it as is, or this becomes your new tracing block. So then you can then just weight it down. I'm just gonna tape it. Tape everything down, or if you want to trace it, trace everything down and remark all of your lines.
Are we working on this paper? This number paper?
Yep, you're going to be working on this. This is pattern paper. It's just regular paper. It's easier to manipulate. The reason why we did the cardstock with this one is because we're constantly tracing it, so we don't want it to be flimsy. Whereas this one, this is like the working paper. We're going to be like, you know, changing it up, ripping it up, and taping it and stuff. So
Is it easier to manipulate with just a normal this?
you can use those too. This one has the numbers, which are exactly 1 inch apart. So if you want to use this to kind of help guide your pattern making, this is yeah, this is specifically for patterning. Okay, so I think I have my dart. This is all good for me to do the rest of the finalizing. So we're gonna do also your back pattern. But for the back pattern, we're not changing anything. We're not moving the darts at all. We're purely going to trace it as is. And we're going to add the necessary seam allowances to it. And then from then, I'm gonna do my checks, checking the seam allowance, making sure it's straight. Sorry, not the seam allowance, the join seams, making sure it's aligned, checking to see if it's trued at the corners. But this one, for the back pattern only, we are not changing any darts. We are just tracing it as is. My high back, sometimes called a cross back. My bust line. Connecting my darts. Okay. And then before I cut it out, I'm gonna draw my seam allowances. Let me do this. And I'll do my seam allowances for the front bodice. So at the side seam, I'm gonna do 1/2 inch seam allowance. The bottom is gonna be 1 inch seam allowance. For the center front, I'm just gonna label center front here. I'm gonna do cut on fold. So it's not gonna have any seam allowances, it's just gonna go straight up. And then I will do my cut on fold symbol. And it's just a line with 2 arrows pointing towards each other, or towards that center front. Armhole's gonna have 1/2 inch seam allowance.
Are these industry standard measurements?
Mm-hmm. If it's not 1/2 inch, it's 5/8 of an inch.
And even on fold, they'll cut things on fold?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm leaving this blank. I'm not drawing in this corner yet because I'm going to show you guys how to true the dart there. So I'm leaving that open, but I'm going to fill in the rest of the line. Shoulder seam is going to have 1/2 inch seam allowance. Neckline is going to have 1/4 of an inch. So the reason the neckline has 1/4 of an inch seam allowance is because it's a lot curvier and it's right around where your eye level is. So the smaller the seam allowance, the easier for it to kind of work around when you're sewing it. You can easily stretch it, but it's not a lot of space to work with. So when you're sewing the seam allowance here, you have to be really delicate. That's why it's 1/2 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch usually. Okay, so let's see. What else do I need to do? I need to mark my darts. So here, for the darts, I'm gonna do a 1/2 scale of what I talked about on the lecture. So you know how on the lecture I said the corner was gonna have 1 inch down and then 1/2 of an inch. So we're gonna do a 1/2 scale of that. That means we're gonna go 1/2 of an inch down. This becomes your new dart point. You'll then connect your dart legs. And then we're gonna, go down an additional 1/4 of an inch, which is the 1/2 scale of 1/2 inch. And that becomes your punch hole. We're gonna do the same thing for our side dart that we just created, our armhole dart. And then our punch hole. Let me see what else needs to be done. Extend our notches. So I'll just do a straight line from the line there all the way to the edge of the seam allowance, and that becomes my notch point. You also want to add notches anytime you're going to have a change in seam allowance. So on average, your seam allowance is going to be 1/2 inch. So anything that changes from the 1/2 inch, you would generally add a notch. So here, my seam allowance changed from 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So I'm gonna add a notch to indicate that 1 inch. And this is usually just for the sewers. When they're sewing it, they'll see that they'll start stitching through, and when you're under, you're not really aware of the pattern. So if you see a notch, you'll know that, oh, this is a notch. That means that this is probably something significant. So that's indicating the seam allowance change. So you'll do one for the 1 inch here. You'll do one for the 1/4 inch at the neckline. So that becomes a notch too. You'll need notches for any dart legs and the bust line. Let's see, and the shoulder line here. And then you'll have, you'll also have it for your armhole, but we created a dart here. So this kind of becomes a notch. You'll see the seam when you're sewing it. So you don't need to mark anything here for the armhole. Okay, I think I'm ready to cut it out. So cut it out. Okay, so we're reaching the dart leg point that I said I was gonna leave extra space around. I'm gonna just cut around it because I need to add, or I need to true that part. So just make sure I have enough space here, and then I'll cut around before I get to that part. Okay. So now let's true the dart that we just made. And by doing that, we're gonna fold where our new dart leg is, our dart point is. So we're folding it as if we're sewing it, matching it with each other. And then you'll take your scissors, or you have a tracing tool, and you can trace it first before you cut it, but I'm just gonna cut it. And I'm folding all of my materials upward because my dart is small enough so that I could just fold the extra up, and my dart from the front side is facing down, right? Sorry, the fold is facing downwards. So I'm gonna hold it in place, and then I'm gonna cut it where I had generally marked the seam allowance area. What that does is that creates a corner at the point here, this point, and that's to make sure that when I'm sewing the seams of the armhole, all of the extra material is being caught within the seam allowance. If it was any lesser than that, say like I did not have enough material underneath, and when you're sewing, like it looks like this on the inside, it doesn't have a nice point, you risk having your extra material flopping on the inside. So you want to make sure it's enough space that's being caught within the seams. So that's what it means to true the dart. It'll usually have a little corner. It looks like I need a little bit of extra space. You know how it's not a nice point here. I'm not too worried about that because when I fold it in, I could see that it's all still being caught on the seam allowance. So I'm not going to worry about that. But when you're working on it, you can kind of gauge for your own pattern if you need to add more material for it. And if you do, you could just take extra paper, you just tape it, and then redraw that point. But this is good for me, so I'll do that. And then I will do my truing of the side seams. And I'll show you the shoulder seam as well. I actually want to see if there is built-in seam allowance or built-in ease here. So my seam allowances. So for the center back, I'm gonna add 1 inch allowance. This is to, if you had any closures that you wanted to do, like if you wanted to do a button, if you wanted to do a zipper, this will kind of help give you enough space to do your finishing for the closure. Center front will be cut on fold, center back will be 1 inch hem allowance. Let's see, so for the dart, let's do our punch hole. So for the back, you don't need to do your 1 inch extension of your dart point. You just need to do your 1/2 inch, but in the half scale, I'm doing it as a 1/4. And then that becomes your punch hole mark. Again, the back, you don't need to do your 1 inch extension because it's not at the apex point, and it's not necessary for you to fix that point. Let's see. Ooh, one thing I also want to mention is always add your grain line. Grain line is always going to be parallel from center front or center back. What the heck? The grain line, the grain direction should always be parallel to the center back or the center front. Let's see. Okay, now I'm ready to cut. Oh, I did not extend my notches. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly do my notch points, my notches, and my dart legs. See, I have 2 armhole notches here. I'm just gonna extend that. And I have my bust line notch, my notch for the dart legs, my notch for my hem allowance change, and for my neckline. Okay. I want to check my shoulder seams to see if they align. So I'm gonna walk my patterns. By doing that, I'm gonna close up this dart first, as if I were to sew it. So close it. And I don't need to true it because the bodice probably most likely is already trued, but I could see that it's not completely straight. So I'm just gonna go in, make sure that's straight. Make sure that's straight, and just use my scissors to trim it. Well, okay, now I'm gonna line it up. Fold it one more time at the seam allowance. This is my stitch line right here, so I'm just folding the seam allowance back so that I can line it up and see if it matches up. So it does, for the most part, match up. Looks like the back bodice is a little bit smaller, so I'm just gonna add to it. Or you can reduce from the front bodice. It really doesn't matter, as long as it's completely straight. Actually, I think I'm gonna trim away. So I'm gonna reduce from the front bodice instead. That's because I already cut my seam allowance, so I can't even make changes from there. So I'm changing my front a little bit, and that's just shaving off the slightest bit. So anyway, the discussion about the ease, it looks like there was no ease added here. So you don't have to worry about trimming anything off, but just make sure it's aligned, do your checks, just make sure that your join seams are actually straight to each other. So that's the next check. I wanna check my 90 degrees. So kind of just quickly go, if it's pretty straight, then you'll just do your little corner box. This one, it looks like it's a little bit big, but I don't think this is gonna be too drastic. I think it's still gonna be pretty smooth transition.
And those 90-degree angles are so that your like holes will be more like fluid, basically, like your
Mhm.
armholes and your neck holes,
Mhm.
right?
Yep, so that when you do attach your seam, say you do attach it together in your shoulder seam here, you'll have a nice smooth line here. The back will always most likely have the angles here are gonna be bigger and wider than 90 degrees. To me, that's, because I've seen back patterns all the time, to me, that's not a problem. You want that extra material. If you increase it, if you decrease it even more than what it is, what's gonna happen is you're losing fabric. You're losing extra space here. But you need that extra space for the back, because your back is way more spacious, like more surface area. So usually I just leave the back as is. It looks like it's not 100% 90 degrees. To me, that's not a problem. So then you'll just kind of do your checks here, the bottom. You know, you don't have to go in and like really like make sure it's accurate. You just kind of gauge it, kind of eyeball it, and then do your 90 degrees. I think that's it. From here, then you will label with your identification. So this is your front piece, this is your back piece.
You don't have to check the sides.
Yeah, you can check the side seam.
Okay.
I just wanted to demonstrate
Gotcha.
the shoulder
Yeah,
seam, but yeah, if you wanted to, you could check the side seam.
Okay.
You would just fold as if you did your seams, and it looks like the side seams are not completely aligned. So I'm just gonna trim from the front here. And that's gonna trim off like 1/8 of an inch. So you can use your French curve, just gonna eyeball it. And these are just general checks that you would do just to make sure everything is aligned so that when you cut it out on your fabric, you're not dealing with a mess later. You're fixing it all on the pattern first before you transfer it onto fabric. Okay, so now I'm gonna label it. This is my first piece. Usually when you label it, I would label from the front to the back to the bottom. So if you have like 2 pieces in the front, it would be like 1, 2, 3, and then you'll do your front skirt, you'll do your back piece. So starting from 1, I would do the center front most to the back and then to the bottom. So 1 here, this is my front bodice. And then 2, this is my back bodice. And so on all of the lists, the labeling that I did, like this is gonna be a size 10 half scale.
Are we putting names as well?
Yes. So whatever I indicated on the pattern, on the PowerPoint, make sure you have that written out here. So it's gonna be a long list, you have to like write a lot after, but please remember to write it, otherwise you will get points taken away. Yeah, so this is how you would label the actual pattern piece. I'm gonna show you how to label your pattern chart. And again, this is just to summarize all of the pieces, so when somebody is going to cut, they'll know, okay, there should be a total of 5 pieces, 5 pattern pieces, and go and count all of their pieces, make sure everything's there, everything looks good, then they'll move on to the cutting part. So you'll label 1, that's gonna be this piece here. You'll label what its name is, so this is the front bodice. Cut number, so remember this one I said this was gonna be cut on fold. So we're just gonna cut 1 on fold. You're also gonna label that here. 1 on fold. So that's how you label the listed part here. Here, the front and the back is gonna be a very basic flat sketch. So you can draw, you guys know what flat sketches look like? It's not like the nice, fancy, like pretty version of the sketch. It's just how it looks like as is. So for me, that's just indicating, I'm gonna do, oh my God, this is very crappy. But how it would look like flat without being sewn together. And I'm gonna indicate the darts. So we have one armhole dart, we have one waist dart. You can use your ruler to do this. I did a terrible job. But you'll need to do one for the front and the back. In the front, you'll just copy the dart placements as well. That's the flap. The notes, and sometimes there's like an area for you to put a swatch, which is just your fabric that you anticipate you will be using. We're not gonna worry about that. We don't need to worry about the notes unless it's like a specific way that you want this to be put together. You would then notate that here. That's not anything you need to worry about. So just do your listing here in the flat sketches here. Make sure you label with your name, assignment number. This is assignment number 1. Style number, you can just specify what this assignment is, which is just darts. This is our dart. Oh my gosh, this pencil sucks. Dart, assignment, size 10 at a half scale. And so on. The description, you don't need to worry about that as well. And then when you're done with all of your patterns, you're done labeling everything, you're gonna do a punch hole with this little tool like up here. It's the rabbit tool, bunny tool, which creates a big punch hole. You're gonna punch hole all of your pattern pieces, and that's gonna be put together like this. And you said you wanted them to be turned in the binder, or you want them to be?
Oh, instead of like if you got sleeves for your binder, I think it'd be most helpful if you just give me the sleeves, so I don't have to carry 22 binders around, and then I'll just put it in my own binder and then hand it back that way.
Mhm.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so that is how you do the slash and spread. This is how you label it. I'm gonna then move on to the pivot method. After I do the pivot, I will show you guys how to